All right, in three, two, one. What's going on, guys? This is Seth Ford here, and tonight I am back with another video. And man, oh man, the Carolina Panthers potentially drafted one of the best draft class in the Carolina Panthers history. Finally, we have a competent GM. Finally, we have a GM that looks and sees what needs that the Carolina Panthers has to have, because we struggled last year with the 32nd worst defense in the league. But yes, the first part was crazy. The first round was crazy altogether without the Carolina Panthers, with Shedeur Sanders not even going to be drafted until like the fourth round by the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cleveland Browns, and which is even more crazy about that one as well. They have 5 quarterbacks on that depth chart, which is just mind-boggling also. But going back to Dan Morgan with the Carolina Panthers, I don't know why I just went through that topic with a different topic, but anyways, you get the point. The whole NFL draft was just crazy. But hey, hats off to Dan Morgan. We finally might have a great GM that knows how to draft players, to find players, with Dave Canales, with Brandon Tillis. Dan Morgan knows football. He wants dogs, and we finally probably potentially have dogs on this team with Nick Scorton, with Princely. I can't pronounce the last name. Then Lathan Ransom. Honestly, I'm ecstatic. I'm excited to see what these guys, the rookies, will bring in the future, because the Carolina Panthers desperately need defensive players. But I was a little I was okay with the first round with Ted McMillan, but I was like, okay, I get the point with we definitely need a wide receiver one. Ted is actually not bad. He's actually pretty good. I'm understandable, but I was like, guys, we desperately need defensive line. But hey, Dan Morgan backed it up with 2 edge rushers and then 1 defensive tackle. So let's go ahead and go straight to the video. I'm gonna go through all of the grades from each players. So it's gonna be a long video. So if I try to speed and try to talk really fast, just pause the video, look at the stats, or you guys can also look at these stats online as well. So as an overview, the Carolina Panthers did miss out on a corner, which I was kind of bummed about, but honestly, they can probably pick up a corner in the undrafted free agency. So let's see what happens there. So they got an edge rusher, they got a defensive tackle, they got a wide receiver. They just didn't get a corner, which is okay. It's okay, even though we are one of the worst coverage defenses in the league. So they got Ted McMillan. I'm going to say Ted, that's his short for name. Went to Arizona, round 1, 8th pick. And then we got Nick Scorton, who I was actually shocked about this pick. So he was picked in the 19th in the 2nd round. Then we got Princely Uman Milin. Okay, if I pronounced that last name wrong, I'm sorry. This guy was also a edge rusher. He's built like a linebacker almost too. When I watched his highlights, he kind of reminded me a little bit of Brian Burns, which is also, yes, I know some fans may not like Brian Burns anymore, but that's also a good thing. He's like a speedy type edge rusher, and he can also pancake guys as well. So Princely, Ole Miss, he was picked in the 3rd round, the 13th pick, and then we go to the 4th round. I was kind of shocked about this pick. Trevor Etienne, who's the brother of Travis Etienne, I think he still plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's this pick. They picked him in the 4th round and the 12th pick, but I do understand the pick because Jonathan Brooks is hurt, and of course we need another running back to fill in as well, I think, in my opinion. But we did get Dowdell as well. So an interesting draft pick from there from Dan Morgan. And then of course this guy, Lathan Ransom. This dude is a beast. I watched some of his highlights. He's like a hard-hitting safety. He's fast. He's physical, and that's what Dan Morgan wants, is a dog who's physical at the safety position. An Ohio State player. Usually NFL players that are from Ohio State are productively pretty good on defense. So I'm excited about this one. I'm also excited about this one. I thought it was that big dude from Florida, but it's not. Cam Jackson was picked 2nd in the 5th round. He's a stud, a defensive tackle. And of course, we got Mitchell Evans I hadn't really seen too much about Mitchell Evans as a tight end, but we desperately need another tight end as well. So he was picked 20. We just got Sanders last year, so I'm excited for Sanders. We got Sanders, Trimble, and now Mitchell Evans, which that is a nice pick to see. And then of course Jimmy Horn Jr. I am excited about this one because Jimmy Horn Jr. is a beast. He's fast. He's a speedy receiver. He's a deep threat receiver. And I'm excited for him for the Panthers. So hopefully this will work out for him. I really am excited for this one. I did not expect the Panthers to draft Jimmy Horn. So overall, solid draft picks. I'd say like maybe a B plus in my opinion. I don't want to go like a B biased, but I say a B plus or maybe an A, just an A flat grade. I think it's a solid draft. They got edge rushers. They got a defensive tackle. They did get a safety. They got 2 wide receivers. I mean, we're making moves. I'm excited. We're making moves. All right, so Ted McMillan, who is from Arizona, his overall grade this year for the 2024 was an 84 overall grade. You guys can probably pause the video as well, so I'm not going to say all of the snaps. Games played 12 games. He had about let's see here. So receptions, he had about 84 receptions. He was targeted 130 this year. He had 1,316 receiving yards. He averaged about 15.7 yards per catch, which is incredible. And of course, he had 1,300 receiving yards, which is also really solid. And of course, he had 8 touchdowns. Only had 2 less than this year, though he had pretty solid two past seasons with Arizona. And of course, his 2024 comparable grades, he had 85 overall point grades. Right here, you guys can see on the right side is really good, but on the left side is not so great. So he did have a drop rate of a 7.7%, but I believe that they try to make him go do these acrobatic passes. So that's interesting to see. His contested catch rate, which I pretty much just said, he had 60%. So he's a solid catching rate for contested traffic catches. Yards per route run, about 2.87, not bad at all. Grade versus man coverage. He was pretty good versus man on man, which is 89.1%. So that's really impressive as well. And of course, the 2024 advanced stats, he only had 7 drops last year. Yards after catch, which is ranked 248th in the nation, which was ranked 5.1. Missed tackles forced, which is tied for 3rd in the nation, which is really solid. 29 overall. He only had 29 missed tackles. Average depth of target, 13.7, which is ranked 128th in the nation. Deep catches, he had a lot of deep catches last year, which was tied for 21st in the nation with 12. He had 6 screen catches. He had 470. So deep yards, he had 472, which ranked 21st. That's why the Carolina Panthers got him. So him and Xavier Legette can make a 2-1 combo with Jalen Coker. I mean, I'm excited with this year's draft class. I mean, I'm excited for the wide receiving core the Carolina Panthers have. Screen catches, he had 6, which is tied for 276 as well. Slot catches, he had 26, which is tied for 176. And then contested catches, he had 18th, which is tied for 7th. And his slot yards, he had 452, which is ranked 110th. So pretty impressive, in my opinion, with these stats right here. You guys can pause the video if you want and look at that. All right, and then the grades he had for this year, which I mean, it's not bad, but not like some of the games. He had some average games, but he also had some pretty solid games as well. He had a really solid game against New Mexico, which was 94. And then I think Northern Arizona was 57.4. They probably didn't really do much with that. And, of course, he had a solid game against Kansas State with 73.8. And then he had Utah, which is okay, 61.1. Texas Tech, 71.6, not bad. BYU, 60.3, not bad. 64.5 with Colorado. West Virginia had a really solid game against them, which is 89.7 grade. And, of course, he had a solid game against UCF, which was 77.3. And then Houston, he had 65.7, pretty good. And, of course, TCU had a really solid game, 76.1, and an average game against Arizona, which is 64.2. So there you have it for Ted McMillan or Tetuoa. I can't pronounce that first name. So we say Ted McMillan, the first round 8 pick. And next we go to Nick Scorton, who I'm excited for as an edge rusher. or he can be backed up to like a linebacker for 3-4 defense for them. We got an overall grade for 2024 with an 80.1, and games played. He had 12 games played. Defensive snaps 558, pass rushing snaps 316, run depth snaps 221. He had 4 sacks, 4 hits, 28 hurries, which I like that. I know some people say hurries are not a good stat, but you know what? 28 hurries is really solid in my opinion. He had 1 batted pass and snaps by alignment. A gap 0, B gap 15, over tackle 39, outside tackle which is 500, so he's edge rusher obviously. And then we have off ball, which is 4 overall. So not much many stats for defensive edge rushers, especially which is kind of crazy. Anyways, all right. So the 2024 comparables, we have pass rush grade. He had 80.6 overall in the tile, which on the right side, which is really solid. He had a true pass rush grade. Whoo! True pass rush grade. Okay. He had 82.3, which is a really solid grade. And he had run stop rate, which is 7.3, which is really solid, which the Carolina Panthers suck against the rush defense. Run defense grade had a 74.4, really solid. And a pass rush with win rate, which was with those 28 hurries. He had a 17.0% pass rush win rate, which was solid. So I'm excited for that. And of course, lastly, we got the 2024 grades by game. We got Notre Dame. We had a solid game there with 72.5. McNeese State, he had 72.4. Florida, he had a 63.4. Not too bad. Bowling Green had a solid 85 overall grade. Had a pretty solid grade against Arkansas, which is 82.7. Had an average game against Missouri, 66.4. Mississippi State, 80.9. LSU, 75.7. And, of course, South Carolina, not too great, but had an average game, 60. Had a good game against New Mexico State, 73.1. Auburn, 74.6. And then didn't really do much against Texas, which was 43.7. So, overall, a solid pickup by the Carolina Panthers with edge rusher Nick Scorton. And, of course, next, we're trying to speed rush through these videos so you guys can see as well. We got Princely Uman Milan. We got he had a solid and excellent grade as a pass rusher. This guy went off with a 91.1 overall grade. He had 12 games played. He had 474 defensive pass rushes. He had 288 pass rush snaps. He had 168 run defense snaps. He had 11 sacks, 16 hits, and also had 28 hurries. I mean, this guy did it all. He still had a solid last 3 seasons as well overall, but still 28 hurries, 16 hits, and 11 sacks. He upgraded from last year from 7 sacks to 11 sacks. So this guy, like I said, he reminded me a little bit like Brian Burns, but I think that he'll be a lot better, in my opinion, than Brian Burns, and actually gets to the guy more often than usual. No hate towards Brian Burns. He was solid with the Panthers, so I hope he does well with the Giants. But there you guys have it right there. And then we got the snaps. I'll pause the video, guys. You guys want to look at it right there. Then we got the snaps by alignment. A gap, 0. B gap, 0. Over the tackle, 1. And, of course, outside tackle, 464 outside tackles. And, of course, which is the edge rusher. And the off ball, which is 9 overall snaps. So there's that right there. And then secondly, we got the 2024 comparables. You guys can see this and pause the video if you don't want to hear me talking. Just skip through it as well. Overall pass rush grade, we have 91.5. Really, really good. You guys can see it's on the far right side of the graph. Really solid. And, of course, true pass rush grade. Whew. Like I said before, 90 overall, 0.9%, which is incredible on the right side of the tiles. And, of course, run stop rate, 8.6%. Really, really solid. And then run defensive grade, 78.7, which is awesome. And, of course, pass rush win rate, which is 22.8%, which I'm excited about because the pass rushing defense for Panthers last year was hot garbage. I mean, it was just horrible, in my opinion. All right, so lastly, we got Princely, we got 2024 grades by game. Really solid game against Furman, 90.6. Then we got Middle Tennessee State, 86.9. Wake Forest, 72.1. Georgia Southern, 76.9. So really solid. Kentucky, really solid game from there too, 72 against Kentucky. Not so great game against LSU, but had a 59.4. He had a really solid game against Oklahoma, which is 74.9. Had a really solid game against Arkansas, which was 82.4. And then went off against Georgia with a 93.7 overall stat grade. And of course, he had a solid game against Florida, which is 70.3. And Mississippi State, 69, not too bad. And of course, he had an average game with Duke, versus Duke, 67.5. So there you have it with Princely. I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Uman Milan. So I guess, or Uman Milan, something like that. I don't know. Uman Milan. Yeah, that's a last name I cannot pronounce. Anyways, all right. Next, we got Trevor Etienne, whose brother is in the NFL, which is Travis Etienne. So he's a solid running back from Georgia, 5'9", 205. This year's grade, he had an overall solid 82.5 overall grade. He had a solid grade last year, and had a pretty good grade when he was with Florida as well. So he had 10 games played last year. He had 122 attempts with 603 rushing yards, averaged about 4.9. Had 9 rushing touchdowns. And of course, for receiving, he had 32 receptions, averaged about 33 targets, and had a 194 receiving yards. So he's he's like a receiving back or like an exclusive back type of thing if you want to do like an NCAA 25 like categories for running back. So I think he's like a receiving type back. So he's a solid pickup from the draft, late in the draft. And so we have these stats for the 2024 comparables. Rushing grade, he had an 86.7, which is really solid. He had gap grade. He had a 73.0, which is pretty solid. Yards after contact, 3.43, which is pretty good. Zone grade, he had 88.1, which is pretty good. Exclusive rating, I guess he's exclusive or elusive, my bad. Why did I say exclusive? It's elusive. So he had a pretty solid grade, which is 93.7. And then the advanced stats, zone attempts, he had 72, which is ranked 193rd in the nation. Gap attempts, he had 49. So I guess that gap attempts is like going in the middle. I guess you can say that because I'm not an expert with all these like terms and terminology, whatever you call it. I'm having a tongue twister right now, so I'll just forget about that. It's all these like words or like stuff like that. That's just like sometimes I don't know about. But anyways, yards after contact, which this was actually pretty cool. 419, which is not bad, which is tied for 197th in the nation. Okay, not great, but not bad. Carries after 15 yards. He had 7 carries after 15 yards of rushing, which is tied 217th in the nation. He only had 1 drop last year. And, of course, missed tackles or force, which is 28th. With that's actually pretty solid, in my opinion, which is only tied 182 in the nation. Yards per route ran only had 1.03, which is not great, I guess you can say, which is tied for 94th. But, I mean, that's like for receiving-wise, he's a running back. But, anyways, it is what it is. All right, so for Tennessee Tech, I believe that's who they are, right? Tennessee Tech? Something like that. Anyways, he had an 83 overall grade against them. He had a 62 overall grade against Kentucky. Okay. He had an okay game against Alabama, which is 63 or 60.3. Had a really solid game against Auburn, which is 86 overall grade. And of course, he had a 75.3 grade, which is really solid against Mississippi State. Had a pretty good game against Texas, which is 72. Had a pretty good game against Florida, which is 71.9. Had an okay game against Ole Miss, 68.1. Had a really good game against Texas, 81.4. And it didn't really do that much against Notre Dame, 52.8. All right, so there's Trevor Etienne for the draft pick. We got 3 more guys left to go. Actually, 4 more guys left to go. So it's going to be a pretty lengthy video for you guys. So we got Latham Ransom, who's the safety who's picked in the 4th round for the Carolina Panthers, which I'm excited for him. He's a hard-hitting type of safety. So this year, he had an 82 overall grade, which is really solid compared to last year. And, of course, they won the national championship this year. So he had 15 games played. He had defensive snaps. He had 823 pass rushing snaps. He had 14. And they had run defense snaps, 360. Cover snaps, 449. Tackles, 63. Assisted, 15. Missed. Only missed 14 tackles, which is not bad at all compared to 63 overall tackles. So that's pretty solid from him. And then we got snaps by alignment. D-line, he played a little rush on the defensive line. 14 snaps. Slot, 82. Corner, 8. Box, 226. Deep, 490, which is really solid. So you guys can pause the video as well and look at this the snaps by alignment. And then we have the 2024 comparables. Overall grade of coverage, pretty average, not too bad. 66.5, so that's, pretty average. Run defense grade, though, he had a really solid game against that, which was 93.7, so they like to use him in the blitz option. And, of course, missed tackle rate, pretty average. It's about 15.2%. Force and completion rate, which that's pretty good, which is 10%. And an average depth of run tackle. I don't know really what that means, in my opinion, but he had a 4.1, so I don't know what all that means. But anyways, it is what it is with that. And we got 2024 advanced stats with coverage stops. He had 6, which was tied for 293 in the nation. Receptions targeted. He only allowed 21 receptions out of 30 targets. He had 1 touchdown allowed and 1 interception he had. Force incompletions, he had only 3, which is tied for 274th in the nation. Passer rating allowed, which is 95.4, so I think that's bad, maybe, I don't know, which is tied at 459th in the nation. And he had run stops, which is 19th, which is tied 49th in the nation. So I don't really know what passer rating allowed. I guess that's a really solid one, or I don't really know. But anyways, so he had a really solid game against Akron, which is 78th overall grade. He had a not so great game against Western Michigan, which is 58.8. He also had a really solid game against Marshall, which is 77.4. Had a solid game against Michigan State, 76.3. Had a really good game against Iowa, 75. Pretty good game against Oregon, 74.2. Good game against Penn State, 70.2. Purdue had a good game, 74.8. And, of course, Northwestern, 62.9. Not an average game for that. They had a good game against Indiana, 73.7. For Michigan, 72.5. Texas, 67.8. Didn't really do so well against Oregon, 55.8. And then Texas, 48.2. And then lastly, beating Notre Dame in the national championship, 62.2. So, honestly, overall, pretty solid in my opinion. So I give him like a B plus, or actually a B. So B is a pretty solid. B plus is a solid grade for him. So I think that's a solid grade overall in my opinion. So there you have it, guys, for Lathan Ransom. You guys want to pause the video? You guys can look at right there all of the stats from PFF, and then we got Cameron Jackson, or short for Cam Jackson, the defensive tackle for Florida Gators. I was excited about him for the Panthers drafting him, so he's really good in my opinion. He had an overall grade of 77.4. We got 12 games played. We got 382 defensive snaps. We got 198 pass rushing snaps. We got 184 run defense snaps. And we got also he had 2 sacks, which was really solid. 1 hit. He had 13 hurries, which that's actually pretty good. He had 2 batted down passes, which is not bad at all. So he actually improved from last year to this year. So, I mean, he had a solid year this year with a 77 overall grade compared to a 71 overall grade with him. And, of course, the snaps by alignment, we have A gap, 126, B gap, 243, over the tackle, 5, outside tackle. So he played a little bit over the outside or defensive edge type of way. So that's pretty impressive. He had 5 outside tackles, and he had 3 off-the-ball tackles. All right, and then the 2024 comparables, he had an overall grade of a pass rushing grade, 63.2 because he's a defensive tackle. He had a true pass, set pass rush grade with the 63 overall, so pretty average with that one. Run stop grade, which that is impressive, which is 99.3%, which I'm excited about for the Carolina Panthers because the Panthers are not great with the pass rush grade. So drafting him was a great pickup for him. All right, run defensive grade, he had a really solid 80.9 overall grade. And, of course, pass rush win rate, he had 6.8% grade. And then we have, lastly, the 2024 grades by game. Miami, okay, had 63.5. And, of course, Yale, I guess that's who they are. I can't remember who that is. He had a solid game against 75.9. Had a pretty average game against Texas A&M, 64.2, which is, yellow is, okay, good. Green is pretty good. Green is good against Mississippi State, 67.3. Had a good game against UCF, which is 67.7. Same thing with Tennessee, 67.7. Had a solid game against Kentucky, 70.1. Had a good game against Georgia, 65 overall grade, 67.2 versus Texas. Had a really solid game against LSU with 75.9. Pretty good game against Ole Miss, 66.7. Lastly, had a really solid game against Florida State, 76.5. And Florida State was not great this year, though. But so that's a solid pickup from the Panthers. 77 overall grade, late in the 5th round. So I'm excited for Cam Jackson. And then we got Mitchell Evans, who's a tight end. I believe he's like a blocking type tight end. Notre Dame didn't really do much of passing. They're more of a running type team, but they still had a solid year with passing as well. So he had an overall grade 65.3, kind of decreased with a passing rate. So he had 16 games played, passing snaps 344, inline snaps 97 overall inline snaps. And then we have slot snaps. He had 199 receptions. He had 43 targets overall. He had 59 yards. He had 418 receiving yards and a 9.7 yards per catch. He had 3 touchdowns as well. Like I said before, the Notre Dame didn't really do much. They're not a high passing caliber team, but they got it done when needed to. So, anyways, receiving grade pretty average, which is 65.9 for tight end. Yards per route ran or run, which is 1.39, which is not too bad. Contested catch rate, which is pretty solid in my opinion, which is 72.7%. Drop rate, which that's a little concern, but it is what it is, 6.5%. And then run block grade, pretty solid, which is 60.7, though it was not in the yellow percentile. I guess that you can say that's not good, but below average in some cases. But advanced stats, we got drops. He only had 3 drops this year. He had missed tackles, force, which is pretty good, which is tied for 22nd, which is 9. Deep catches, we had 2, which is tied for 50. Contested catches, which is tied for 8th, which had 8. And then yards after catch, reception 4.4, which is tied for 139th in the nation. And average depth of target 6.7, which is tied for 116th. And deep yards, which is 55, which is tied for 68. So, there you have it, guys, for the advanced stats and then all the other stats right there. And then lastly, we have the grades by game. That was a tough game against Texas A&M. That was a wild game. So he had a below average game, which is 53.6 overall grade. Pretty good game, which is crazy they lost to Northern Illinois, which was 68.2. But, that was a wild game after they just beat and upset Texas A&M. But then they went on the roll with beating Purdue 86.7. So really solid game there. And then Miami, Ohio, 57.3. Okay. Not so great game against Louisville, which is 42.9. Okay game against Stanford, which is 52.7. All right game against Georgia Tech, which is 60.8. Really solid game against Navy, which is 77.9. And then okay game against Florida State, which is 60.1. And Virginia, 59.3. A pretty good game against Army, 75.7. Really good game against USC, 75.7. Not so great game against Indiana, 41.7. Average game against Georgia, not so bad. Average game against pretty okay game against Georgia, 68.5. Not so bad game against Penn State, 66.2, and then 64.8 in the national championship versus Ohio State. All right, and lastly, we got the 6th round with the 210th pick of the NFL draft. One of my favorite interesting draft picks for the Carolina Panthers. We have Jimmy Horn Jr. We got overall grade 63.6. Not what you want to see, but also they did have some good other receivers for Colorado as well. So I guess the passing with Shador, so it was just like he threw a lot to different receivers. So he had 11 games played. He had 287 snaps, slot snaps 261, wide snaps he had 16, receptions 337. Oh, I guess never mind. He had 53 targets, so he only had 37 receptions. He did have 441 yards. He had 11.9 yards per catch, and he had 1 touchdown as well. And then, they don't have any alignments one. All right, so, yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So they have 2024 comparables. We have receiving grade, which is below average, which is not great. I mean, but it's still in the green percentile or the light green, which is 65.1. Yards per route run, 1.64. Drop rate, not so bad, which is 5.1%. Contested catch rate, not so great, which is 33.3%. Grade versus man, 57.6. Okay, so he had some not so great stats, but if you watched him play, I think he's gonna be a solid receiver in the NFL if with a right team and a good developmental team. All right, so 2024 advanced stats, he only had 2 drops. He had 9 missed forced tackles, which is tied 184th in the nation. He had deep catches. He had 3, which was tied for 365th. Screen catches, he had 16th screen catches. He's more of a speed receiver, so he did a lot of dink and dunks type of maybe catches. So he had 100. He was tied for 86 in the league with 16 slot catches. He had 33 slot catches, which tied for 127th in the nation. Contested catches, he had 2, which is tied for 422. And then he had yards after catch. He had receptions. He had 6.9, tied for 70th. And an average depth rate of target, 7.8, which is tied for 438th in the nation. Deep yards, he was tied for 313th with 141 screen yards. So, yeah, they used him in a lot of screen-type passes, which is 79, tied for 136 in the league. And, of course, slot yards, tied for 154, which is 363 slot yards. So there you guys have it for the advanced stats. Then lastly, it's been a long video. So 31 minutes is most video I've ever done, in my opinion. So North Dakota State had a solid game. That was a close game overall, 82.6. Not so great game against Nebraska, 50.3. Had an okay game against Colorado State, 58.8. That was a wild game as well. Baylor, 62.2. All right game. And had an all right game against UCF, 61.7. Pretty okay game against Kansas State, 66.9. Not so great game against Arizona, 52.3. Good game against Cincinnati, 68.8. Not so great. Okay game against Texas Tech, 57.2. Had a 58 overall grade against Oklahoma State. And then lastly, 56.4 overall grade for Jimmy Horn. Man, that was a video in the makings right there. All the draft picks right there from the list I just went through with the PFF grade. You guys, if you want to go back and pause videos throughout the whole video, you have it right there. That was probably the longest video I've ever made, but I wanted to do it for you guys because I love making YouTube videos, and I want to make more Carolina Panther videos and also share with you guys with all the stats because I love stats as much as you guys do as well. So there you have it, guys. We got Ted McMillan, Nick Scorton, Prince Uman Millen, Trevor Etienne, Latham Ransom, Cam Jackson, Mitchell Evans, and Jimmy Horn Jr. And there you guys have it for the 2025 Carolina draft picks and from Green Bay area. So yeah, all right, guys. This is this is Set 42 right here. Keep pounding. I hope you guys have a great rest of the night. And I'll probably talk about the undrafted free agents. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, this is just my video going through all the draft picks and the grades just for you guys. And this is like the most I've ever talked in one video. But I actually enjoy it like this as well. So yeah, all right, guys. See y'all next time, and peace out.